once again, welcome to the 7th edition of the Indian Photo Festival. We are so happy that you are here for this artist talk by Sathyaprasad as part of the talk series here. Before that, we have a special guest with us, who is Yachendra, who is the Principal Secretary of the Industries and Commerce and IT departments from the Telangana government. So Jayesh has been a great backer of the Indian Photo Festival for the past few years, encouraging us and supporting us for the festival. So thank you so much for gracing it this evening with your presence. Give you a brief introduction about Satya. So Sathyaprasad is a landscape photographer and was inspired by first light hitting mountain peak in Tibet in 2004. Since then, photographing Himalayas became his passion. He says for him, photography starts and ends with Himalayas. This passion has made him travel to great ranges several times, and he specializes in Himalayan landscape, especially Ladakh, Lahula and Spiti, and North Sikkim. He held several solo group exhibitions and presentations across India and widely covered in print and electronic media. Satya was also a Ranji Trophy player, and he still works with the cricket administration in India. I welcome Satya for this talk.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to give presentation at IPF on the same stage where Reza and Raghurai has given presentation. So I feel it's really honor for me to share my experiences in photography, and I would like to thank Equine for giving me an opportunity. And also IPF, because I have contacts all over India regarding photography. But IPF is one of its kind. See, there is no other festival happening across India continuously. So one odd festival happens or Biennale happens, but every year it is happening in Hyderabad, Indian Photography Festival. That's really credit to the Equine and the government of Telangana, and the way they are supporting photography is I mean, every year my friends from across India, they used to come to Hyderabad, but due to COVID it is slowed down. But previously, friends from across India, they used to come and they used to and praise about the way it's happening. That's really wonderful, and the credit should go to Equine and Telangana government. And thank you, sir, for landscape that took only on Himalayas. There is no reason why I do only on Himalayas, but it has to come from inside. And always Himalayas fascinated me. And right from my childhood, I was always in awe of Himalayas right from my childhood, whenever I looked at images or see it in the movies. But real turnaround came in 2004 when I went to Tibet. And that's the time when I just taking a walk early in the morning to get acclimatized. The first rays of sun, there's a small village called Nailam. Here hardly 100 people live there, but we are staying there in very primitive conditions. But I just taking a walk to get acclimatized, and as I lifted my head and I saw the first light of sun hitting the mountain peak in golden color, snow mountains. So something snapped inside, so this is what, and after that I'm not the same person, it's totally changed. It's really surprising that a matter of seconds, a person's whole, attitude and thought process changes. That second it happened, I can easily, whenever I close my eyes, I can visualize that. So that's my connection with Himalayas, and it continues to be same, and so continues to be same with Himalayas. So, and coming back to landscape photography. And all of us are deep inside, we like landscape. If you recollect, when we are children, we used to draw. If you give white paper and with a color pencil or crayons, draw something, the first thing what we used to do is draw two mountains and sun setting or sunrise, and a lake in the foreground or river in the foreground, birds flying. So I'm sure all of us has done the same thing. I'm sure about that. So inside, all of us are inside that the love for landscape is there in every individual. But as we grow up and we exposed to so many other factors, so we deviate. I mean, we started liking other genres. But basically, all of us, I'm sure about that. All of us, we start as landscape photographers, not photographers, painters, or we love landscapes. So, and why landscapes is something that it gives a lot of positivity. If you look at a beautiful mountain or beautiful valley or beautiful river or beautiful clouds, there's a lot of positivity. That is what we need. The need of the hour is positivity, because there's so much of depressed things going on around the world. So I always feel that in my own small way, I keep sending good morning messages to a lot of my friend groups and all. So they got so used to it. If I don't send it one day, I get a text, what happened? So at least my small contribution is that at least from my own small way, I want to spread the positivity in the world, in the country, or among my friends. So that is how the landscape works. And the landscape is, but if you look at history of landscape, it is a relatively small, recent subject. It just started 200 years back. Before that, all the paintings is about the gods, be it Renaissance time or in Indian context, is all about, I won't say mythology, that's not the right word, but all about the goddess, and everything that is how they used to showcase. If you go to temples, you find a lot of this architecture, or if you go to Renaissance paintings, it's all about Jesus Christ and so many things like. But the landscape was never a part of. It's not popular. Not popular means it's not recognized. Only last 200 years, the Dutch painters started the movement landscape, pure landscape. So always landscape is to be background, but actual landscape started when Dutch painters 250 years back, started painting landscapes. So then came the photography, and photography also initially it was like, they want to be like pictorial photography where it is like paintings, but that's how the photography evolved. But when Ansel Adams came, he is father of landscape photography. So he came and he demolished, when he started F64, so he demolished that photography is different from painting. So that is how the photography had its own, had the path. So he showed the path to photographers. So Ansel Adams always is the father of landscape photography. So coming back to my presentation, what I'm going to show is the intimate landscapes and dynamic landscapes. See, basically what happens is sometimes landscape is never boring, but sometimes photographers tend to make it boring, like oversaturating the images or copying somebody who is doing the same thing. They copy the same thing, and if you keep doing the same thing, if you don't have your own originality, it becomes boring. So landscape is never boring. Sometimes photographers tend to make it boring, but I'm not criticizing anyone. But I personally feel that everyone, all of us are different. Each person is different. And that's what I follow. I read a lot about Bruce Lee. It has nothing to do with photography, but his philosophy, Jeet Kune Do, where he says everyone has to evolve his own way of doing. So photography also, we have to evolve so we can get inspired. But if you think, I'm going to copy him, so that's not him. Even musician, everyone has to have his own style of music. So if you're going to copy anyone, you will become a clone of him, clone of that, but you won't have your own originality. So in photography also, my own way, in landscapes, I have different genres of landscapes, like I'm going to show you. Be it abstract, vertical, monochrome, colorful, and very minimalism. So those the landscape is a different. In landscape, I'm trying to show my different types of landscape. To start with, yeah. So that's what when I said we used to paint mountains, it is how we used to paint mountains. So sometimes I came across Ladakh. So this one early morning I saw this range of great ranges. So this is early morning I found this image, this race of mountain. So my recollect how I used to visualize, how I used to visualize the landscapes like. And the rainbow is something fascinating. even if you get it in Hyderabad, always you come out and see rainbow happens. But I have the connect with the nature. So it's not that I'm praising myself or boosting myself, but whenever I go into Himalaya, some magic happens. And I don't know why, but my connect with Himalayas is very, very, very strong. And I have so many fascinating experiences. Some of them I cannot tell, but they look too absurd. But still, I have deep, deep connect with the Himalayas. And always, when I close my eyes, I can see mountains. So that's how my connect with the Himalayas like. And this is near Tikse Monastery. We went inside and just coming out, I was thinking, I just hope something happens. It was cloudy, something happens. As soon as I came out of the monastery, saw this beautiful rainbow. And this image is at near Mato. I still recollect, 2019, there was that Article 370 was about to be lifted. So there was a lot of excitement across the Kashmir Valley and the Ladakh. So people are scared. A lot of military people are coming all over to the Ladakh and Kashmir. So no one knows what's going to happen. But we stayed back. I think it will happen. Ladakh, I tell you, is the safest place on this planet. I feel it's the safest place because I tell you experiences during the course of my talk. What happened was, and everyone went inside the monastery, and something in me said, "You just wait. Something will happen. Some magic will happen." So I was just sitting alone across outside the monastery on a small rock, and just looking at it. Something happened. I was telling it something very seriously inside. Something will happen. And slowly the mountains started getting lit, and my mind was totally engaged. I was like, that 5 minutes was unbelievable. I was showing a lot of images, but slowly that once the mountains was lit, then shadow fell, and I felt so happy that I was listening to something what happened inside me. This is a key monastery in Himachal Pradesh, and evening time, a lot of my friends, they're having a tea, but I just walked out. So see, a beautiful time, why should I waste having tea? So I just walked out, and I was walking down, saw this beautiful clouds one side and the monasteries other side. And if you observe carefully, the right side you can see a face inside. I didn't see it when I was shooting, but when I downloaded the image, I saw that. You can see a face inside the right side of the cloud. And normally in Ladakh, landscape photography, people say you should shoot in the golden hour. That is 1 hour before sunrise. 1 hour after sunrise and 1 hour before sunset. But always I feel fascinated after sunset. That's the time when the beautiful colors in the sky comes out after the sunset. And giving a long exposure, a slightly long exposure, can capture the beauty in the sky and the reflection in the water. So these are the things where, and this particular time, this is called Sumarori Lake in Ladakh. And I waited previously I show you other images also before what happened, but that half an hour again is one of the most interesting and fascinating time I had in mountains. This is, it kind of an abstract. It is from Dhankar Monastery in Spiti Valley, and that's not sun or moon. It's just a flare on the lens. Okay, so people think it's something moon or sun or something like that. Nothing like that. It's just a flare, and allow the patterns in the river, and kind of an abstract, and this is how this image is evolved. And always we think that landscape is only with the wide angle lens, and nature or if you birds or wildlife with the telephoto lens. We have fixed mind. Okay, landscape we should show only with the wide angle. But there is one philosophy. called Tao. Tao philosophy is that, Tao in photography, what it says is that you don't decide which lens to use. Let the subject decides. Okay? So let the subject decides what lens to use. For example, you're thinking that I'm going to use long focal length for tiger. Okay, so tiger I'm going to use 500 mm. But suddenly the tiger comes so close to you, the 500 becomes useless. So in the end, which is deciding? The tiger is deciding which focal length to use. Similarly, in landscape also, there are certain times in photography when the light falls, only you have to capture that part where it is highlighted. So that is what, then you have to use zoom. So it is not me who is using that zoom. It is subject in front of me is telling you use this zoom, that you get the best one. So this is also in a place called Moonland in Ladakh, where if you use wide angle, you would have been whole area. So that would have been very monotonous. But the part of the Moonland is looking very interesting with this composition. So I used telephoto. So it's not that you have to have certain rules that only wide angle for landscape. You can use any focal length, depends on the subject. This is, all of us love the snow mountains with the clouds. So this is a typical travel images, like we love that. So snow mountains and the cloud across and the light falling, it gives you very, very positive this thing to that. Again, this half landscape, like so always people say that half landscape, where we think that the sky should be part of the landscape. Again, it's not necessary that sky should be always part of the landscape. And the beautiful formations and the light falling on that, the formations and the backdrop and the river flowing. So it gives you, again, very, very positive energy to the viewer. And also, when I'm shooting, I want to show that what I'm thinking, like, that what state of my mind, it shows in you have to show in your images. So always I show that, and when I'm in the mountains especially, I'm always a positive person, but especially when I'm in the mountains, always the positivity gives me a lot of energy. Again, Tikse Monastery. So again, the prayer flags, the Buddhists always they do, wherever there's a water body or bridge, they tie colorful flags. So just if I showed the monastery, that would have been a very normal stuff, but adding flowers to the flags to the image has given the dynamism to the image. So landscape is always a dynamic subject. It's not a static. It's always light is always dynamic. So it is static. So it is never static. So this is also showing the wind, and we can't show the wind in the photograph, but this is how we have to show that it's very windy. It's called, Stakna Monastery. It's a Stakna Monastery in Ladakh. And as I said, it is a lot of abstract in landscapes. So this is a lake, Sumrari Lake, and unless I tell you this is a reflection, it's like abstract. It's a verge of abstract and proper landscape. So as I said, its verticals are there, landscape mode is there, and colorful is there, and minimalism. So this is a kind of an abstract. This is a genre of photograph, abstract. But in landscape, it gives you a lot of, it'll make you think that what is the landscape photograph. And this is near Nubra Valley. So there's a place called Biscuit. Okay, so we shot, the evening we finished our shoot, and we're having a tea. So after that, we just relaxed and having a tea. Suddenly I saw the beam coming out of behind the mountain. And where I'm sitting, the angle is not right. So I left everything, just took out my camera, and literally I ran for a couple of 100 yards to reach the edge of the village where I can get better view. But thanks to my sports background, and sprinting at the altitude of 13,000 feet, and not collapsing suddenly. But I mean, thanks to my sports background, I just regained my breath in a few seconds and shot this image. And this is again, I am telling the connect, because the local villagers also were surprised to seeing this kind of beam. So they are telling, hardly they see very, very rarely this kind of beam coming behind the mountain. So I always felt that I'm blessed with the Himalayas. So this thing, I mean, it's blessed with all this kind of magic light. This is at Sikkim, Gudongmar Lake, and this lake is around 18,000 feet altitude. And normally it is very close to Tibetan border, and the very sensitive area is under military control. So my dream is, I've been there so many times, but always my dream is to be there in the early morning, first light, how to capture that, and how the lake is going to be. But normally military they don't allow. But thanks to my friend Ishwar, his son-in-law was working in military, so we got special permission, and so we started at 12 o'clock at night from where we are starting, where we are staying. So 12 o'clock at night we started. By the time we reached this lake, it was 4 o'clock, 4 a.m. And they gave us a Havaldar to be our guide. So by the time we reached, and trust me, in October end, and at the altitude of 19,000 feet, it was pretty cold, and that's where your willpower should come out. The love for the mountains. Now more than the willpower, your love for the mountains. So all these obstacles, we take it as a challenge, not as an obstacle. So that's how I achieved my dream of shooting the first race, hitting the lake and the mountain. This is in Zanskar at a place called Spangde, where I can, if you go up in the mountains, you can see the village and the river flowing and the patterns in the fields where the agriculture takes place. So this is gives beautiful feel, and this actually I went there 4 or 5 times. Only once I got really good lighting. See, lighting is all about lighting, and photography, especially landscape photography, is all about lighting, and nothing is in your control. The light is not in your control, and if it's going to rain, or there are times when the entire trip, 10 days I was in Sikkim, I could barely take few images because it was raining all through. So we have to be prepared that if it happens, enjoy it, but even otherwise, enjoy the mountains. Again, this abstract in a river near a place called More Plains. So evening light was falling in that river. You can see the gold is as if it is gold is flowing, that liquid gold. So I love this. I mean, these are some of the images I never showed before. Some of them I showed because I exhibited quite a few in this. So I'm not showing most of these images because most of you have seen that. So I'm trying to show something which I haven't shown it before. Because if you see my online presentations, quite a few are there. But this time what I'm trying is mostly that something new I'm trying to show. And this is a typical travel shot. It is showing the Tikse monastery and the surroundings and behind the mountains and the fields in the trees in the foreground. So, I mean, landscape also, the travel is always part of it I have to show sometimes. Though I don't do much of travel images, but sometimes we have to have variety. I shoot with this kind of travel images. Again, this is totally, I was trying to evolve. So what I'm shooting 10 years back or 15 years back or 5, 6, 7 years back. So our thought process will be changing. And if I go to Himalayas, every time I go, they look different. I mean, the mountains are there for millions of years and they'll be there for in future also. But why I'm seeing it differently is that I'm changing internally. All the journeys are like inward journeys. So whenever we go, you're not the same person if I go to Himalayas now. I'm not the same person last year. I mean, our experiences, see, when you press the shutter, all our thought process and our experiences in our life shows in the image. So now I'm trying to do, not deliberately, but I'm trying to do something what my mind is thinking, and thanks to technology, so all these things I could do that. I mean, this wouldn't have been possible during film days, thanks to digital technology. Although I never crop images, I never add anything. I shoot what I see. That's it. A period. I don't shoot long exposure, half an hour, 1 hour, showing star trails and all. That though we can do it, but always I shoot what I see, what is in front of me. This another way of looking at the lake, behind the mountains and the blue water. This also kind of travel images showing, I mean, I shot this in 2019, so I was standing slightly up there. So the sheep in the foreground and the mountains and layers added. And vertical image, though if you print the vertical image looks much better. So I don't show, that's the reason why I don't show when I'm giving presentations or in screen, the vertical doesn't have full impact unless it is printed. So print is the ultimate. If you're a photographer, if you're not printing, the photography, you're not full-time, I mean, you're not fully photographer. What you print is going to make a lot of difference. How good you are, how you can improve. And when you hold the print in your hand, that's the satisfaction, or when you see the print on the wall, the satisfaction is totally different. This is again kind of an abstract, and this is at Himachal, Spiti Valley. So again, I'm trying to, though they shot a few years back, I'm trying to show something different, not particularly valley or river. I mean, combining this with the valley and the mountains. And talking about Ladakh, this is Shok River. Ladakh has so many fond memories, and sometime back I said this is the safest place. I'll tell you the reason. A few years back, there was a small festival at Nubra Valley, the same time, the same place. And one of my friends was carrying very costly equipment. We were sitting, and he was having 2 camera bodies and 2 lens or 3-4 lens. Suddenly the festival started, and all people gathered, and we got up from there. We went around that village and the entire, for 2-3 hours, we just forgot. We are shooting the dancers and the place and all. Suddenly remembered, oh my God, I left my camera in the middle of the crowd and the lens. So he called me. I was far away. He shouted, Satya, once come. And then I said, what happened? Satya, I left my camera. What would have happened? But I said, this is Ladakh, nothing will happen. So again, we went in search, and trust me, there are 100 people are there, but the bag is open, with the camera is on and with the lenses are on. Nobody even touched it. Then the guy is from Delhi. He was laughing. The same thing in Delhi, within few seconds, would have been disappeared. The same thing in Delhi, within few seconds, whole thing would have been disappeared. So that's how the Ladakh is what. And now coming back to black and white. This is a kind of an abstract. As I said, abstracts is always, gives you to think, and viewer also will think what it is. So that's the beauty of abstract. And if you look at it, sheer scale of the image, where that horses are grazing in front of the huge mountain. The sheer scale of the image is something that is, I just want to show this. Always you don't have to add sky to the image. It's always part, not necessarily always you have to hold down. Again, light, in landscape photography, the geography also plays most important. Where we are shooting and what season we are shooting, and we plan accordingly. So when the light is really good, and it happens beautifully, that the light and shade, and once we have the clouds formations when it happens, this really look wonderful. This is the only image where my presentation, I gave little bit of exposure more to get the moonlight effect. Actually, it's moonlight in a place called Kalpa. The clouds are moving, and you can see that small, the stars also is moving. So just to capture that moonlight, I had to force to give rather long exposure. But always that it gives you that the cloud movement and the star, a few seconds, 30 seconds star trends. Again, this reflection and abstract, whichever way you can see, if you tilt it, it becomes a face. If you see vertical, it's like a hands. And I mean, this is deliberately I've done that. I can see when I'm shooting, I can see that. So now, coming back to when I'm talking about Himalayas, I had to share a couple of experiences, what I felt, why my attachment. There was a time in Sikkim in December 10th or 15th, early in the morning there's a place called Yumtang. When we are at Yumtang, early morning we are again there for sunrise shots. We are there at 4 o'clock in the morning. And there are 6-7 guys are with us. So we got down, it was extremely cold, but I got down, a couple of us, and everyone got down. So suddenly one guy said, you know what's the temperature now? I said, what is it? He said it is -6. The moment he said -6, except to everyone got into the car and they were refusing to get down. Till that time they were okay. But I said, having taken this trouble, let's do it. So I went into the valley and till the sun came out, I was shooting and long night, and I really enjoyed it. But after that, when the sun really started falling on the valley, then it became like it was flat. So as I was walking back to the car, the sun flakes started melting. The sun rays when they're hitting, and it's like shining, like it's like diamonds. So suddenly, few seconds, I felt I'm walking through the diamond mine. All over the valley, it was like chick, 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 chick. It was coming, and it was like unbelievable experience. That few seconds, half a minute when I walked through that valley, it was. After that, they melted. But when they are melting, they can see that that was, so fascinating. So these are the things really make me attached to that Himalayas. And there was one more time when I was walking in a valley. Suddenly, the wildflowers, the fragrance was so intoxicating. I felt I'm going to I will have. That fragrance was so pungent and intoxicating. So these are the very, very personal experiences where I've gone through, and these are the, landscape again, as I said, is all about positivity. So I hope, in these few minutes, I conveyed my thought process and my photographs and all. God bless you. So this is my old monastery. The beams are coming, and these are a few images of my journey in Himalayas. I just hope and pray my journey continues with the positivity. And thanks once again for Edwin for doing this. Any questions? Any questions?
Good evening to all of you.
Yeah.
My name is Swapnil Divedi and I'm an aspiring photographer. So, sir, I just wanted to ask you a simple question that, like you said, you do photography in such high terrains where it's so difficult and challenging to shoot photographs, especially when, above 8,000 feet, you face a lot of challenges. Like you said, it was -6 degrees. So, I can understand it gives you a kind of inner peace to shoot all these photographs that you have shown us, and they are brilliant. But is there a bigger purpose behind shooting these photographs, or is it just you do because you like doing, or it gives you a kind of high when you shoot and look at the images back? So just wanted to ask, is there a bigger purpose behind it, or you just do it for the peace of mind for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good one. Basically, that, as I said, my photography starts and ends with Himalayas. Okay, so when I go to Himalayas, there's no purpose. I just being there itself is a purpose. So it's called when I'm in Himalayas, I'm cut off from the rest of the world. I'm cut off from the rest of the world, and I totally into that, living in that moment. See, photography is more like a meditation, So photography and meditation is very, very close. So when you are having a camera in your hand and when you're composing, you are living in that moment, okay? So that's what meditation teaches you, to live in that moment. So when I do that, Himalaya, I mean, the physical journeys are okay, the cold and all part of it, we are prepared, most of the time we are prepared. But what really enriches you is your inward journey, how you evolve as a person. So these are the places when we live for days together without any food. Food in the sense, not normal food, we just live on the Maggie. But imagine if you are living in Hyderabad, you can never do that. So the purpose is the being there, whatever, not only in Himalayas, where a photographer, all these things should be last thing in your mind. Food, accommodation, whether have a better room or a normal room or a 5-star hotel. So all these things should be a last thing in your mind. It is all about living in that moment, enjoying that moment.
Thank you.
Hi Sathya, it was a fantastic talk.
Thank you.
So you say your photography starts in Himalayas and ends in Himalayas. So
Yeah.
how did you manage to stay at home for the past 2 years?
Yeah, looking at the images and I was thinking how better I can do, what I can do better and keep, evolving as reading. I just, see for example, I don't read too many photography books. I read other books which really fascinated me. For example, The Alchemist. That book really opened my eyes towards photography. It is not that, there's nothing to do with photography, but it opened my eyes. And there's another book, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, it's a small book. But when I read that, I can easily relate myself with that, the whole concept of photography. So that's what I kept on reading so many other different journals to evolve myself as a photographer.
Also, do you have any advice for the emerging photographers who really want to go to Ladakh or
Yeah,
Spiti?
my small advice is that when you are doing photography,
Yeah, I have a small doubt.
yeah, sure.
Recently, I have been to Himalayas.
Okay.
So, I came up with this problem. So, when you are photographing, did you face any discharge of batteries or like that?
Yeah, so you have to have backup.
Backup.
Okay, definitely. Because, see, first time when I went, those days, film days, normally I used to use for 1 month, 2 months the same battery. It discharged overnight. So I left with a very few batteries, so I learned my lesson, So when your discharge happens, why it happens is when you leave your camera in the cold. So always you should be close to your body, okay? So even when you're sleeping, just keep camera inside your blanket. So it won't happen because of cold, the battery discharges faster. So you have to have backup. See, we spend so much on your camera and your travel and so many things. Having few extra batteries is going to help you out. So it's worth it having it.
Okay, thank you. Like I drained 3 batteries in just 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. It happens. So you have to be careful. So always keep close to your body because the body warmness will keep the battery in a good thing. But don't leave it out, especially when you are not shooting.
అన్న ఒక చిన్న డౌట్. నేను కాశీ చూసినప్పుడు అంటే చాలా ఫోటోగ్రాఫ్స్ మనకు బయట చేసిన వాళ్ళవి చూసిన తర్వాత కాశీ వెళ్ళిన తర్వాత ఏమైందంటే దాన్ని క్యాప్చర్ చేయలేనంత వ్యాస్ట్ దాని క్యాన్వాస్ చూసిన తర్వాత ఫోటోగ్రాఫర్స్గా మనము అంటే ఫోటోగ్రఫీలో ఇమిడే విషయం కాదనిపించింది. అట్లాగే ఇప్పుడు అంటే నా పర్సనల్ నేను కాశీ మీద చిన్న ఎగ్జిబిషన్ పెట్టినప్పటికీ అది ఫోటోగ్రాఫర్స్ ద్వారానే కాదు, అసలు క్యాన్వాస్ అని చెప్పింది. నాకు అనిపిస్తుంది మరి హిమాలయాస్ నిజానికి మీరు చేసే ప్రయత్నం ద్వారా మేము చూసినందువల్ల మేము ఎంత పర్సెంట్ దాన్ని ఫీల్ అవ్వగలుగుతున్నాం అనేది నాకు అర్థం కావట్లేదు. మీరు ఒరిజినల్గా మీరు అక్కడ ఉండి ఆ ఎనర్జీని, ఎక్స్ప్రెషన్ని, ఆ బ్లిస్ని మీరు పొందింది ఒక 10%, 50% అట్లా చెప్పగలమా?
అది చూసే ప్రతి ఒక్కరికి ఒక్కొక్కరికి ఒక్కొక్క విధంగా ఉంటుందండి. అంటే ఇప్పుడు నేను చూపించాల్సింది మ్యాక్సిమం మనకు బేసిక్గా అక్కడ ఉన్నప్పుడు మనకి గాలి ఉంటుంది, స్మెల్ ఉంటుంది, మనకి ఆ చలి ఉంటుంది, ఆ వేడి ఉంటుంది. కానీ ఫోటోగ్రాఫ్స్ అవన్నీ మనం చూపెట్టలేము. కానీ అవన్నీ మనకి సాధ్యం కాదు. మనం నేను ఏం చేయగలుగుతానంటే మ్యాక్సిమం నేను ట్రై చేస్తాను. నేను ఎలా ఫీల్ అవుతున్నాను మనసులో, అంటే చలి వేడి అని కాదు, మనసులో ఆనందంగా ఎట్టున్నానో ఆ ఆనందాన్ని నేను కొంతవరకైనా నేను చూపించగలిగితే అది నేను సఫలీకృతం అవుతాను అట్లా నా అటెంప్ట్లో. అది ఒక్కొక్క చూసే వాళ్ళ బట్టి ఉంటుంది, నాకు చెప్పలేదు. ఎందుకంటే
మొత్తానికి వెళ్ళని వాళ్ళం ఉన్నాం. ఇప్పుడు ఉదాహరణకు అసలు ఇట్లాంటి ప్రదేశాలు ఎప్పుడు పోని వాళ్ళకు అది ఎంతవరకు అందుతుంది అనేది తెలియట్లేదు. పోయిన వాళ్ళే చెప్పాలి అసలు.
అది పోయిన వాళ్ళు చెప్పాలి. అండ్ వెళ్ళని వాళ్ళు కూడా ఏమనుకుంటున్నారు చెప్తే నాకు ఇంకా అంటే నాకు ఇంకా నెక్స్ట్ ఏమని వేరే ఏమైనా చేయగలుగుతానని చూస్తాను.
I have a simple question, Satya. In our long association, I have observed one important difference in you. So whenever you talk about your photography, your images, I see you bubbling with enthusiasm, right? I don't know, it practically transfers to the viewer, to the listener. And I was lucky enough to be with you in some of our trips to the Himalayas. But there, you are absolutely quiet. Right? We may stand right next to each other.
Okay.
Your image is totally different. And okay, mine obviously will be different. How come when you actually experience it, you are quiet and calm? And when you relive the experience, you are so bubbly. No, this only tells me one thing. Reliving the experience will bring you greater joy than the actual experience itself. Could you please explain?
Yeah, it's very, very, I mean, what you should have said, very, very, I won't say tricky, very interesting question, Ishwar. See, then, normally, when I'm doing photography, you have seen me. I mean, see, whole day I won't be doing photography. Only the few minutes in a day when something inside me happens, I mean, something is happening in front of me, I do that. So when I'm doing that, my entire focus, I mean, even if you're standing next to me, I won't be talking to you, or don't take me that I'm kind of ignoring you or nothing like that. Because my entire focus is on that living in that moment and capturing that moment. So my entire 100% focus. So that is called in cricketing terms zone. Zone is something that time is that you are in zone means that your thoughts, your ideas and your, I mean how you are capturing the moment, everything synchronizes. So you are in a totally different zone. So sometimes that happens in photography also. All of us, we go through that. So, and why I'm bubbly is that when I'm giving presentation, when I'm talking of Himalayas, all I recollect when I'm talking about it, say I didn't prepare everything. It's like, so I just selected few images and everything comes extempo. Because I don't want to write down and read or something like that. Because I'm reliving the moments where I'm standing in front of a mountain or lake or river. So mentally I'm going through all these things. So probably that's why it shows I'm more bubbly when I'm talking about the one or giving presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, sir. This is Kalyan. I'm doing my bachelor's degree in photography and visual communication, sir. Sir, I have 3 questions, sir. First question: the presentation was absolutely beautiful, sir. I could not speak out of words. Sir, in your photos, I could see every intricate detail of how you could. We felt the experience when you were there, sir. We felt the experience when you were there. How much time you take for seeing the perspective of a photographer? Like not only taking a photograph, we must show our perspective to the general audience also. How much time you take to receive a perspective while shooting landscapes? Because landscape shooting is not an easy job. And how much time, how would you use your technicality, sir? How much would you bother on your technicality? And what would you do for post-production, sir?
Yeah, so very good question. See, I do photography. If you look any artist, okay, any artist, if he's doing a freelance job, if you're paid, okay, you had to do certain, the client asked you, you had to deliver that. But if you are doing a freelance job, you won't be doing to impress somebody, okay? You are doing it for your own self. So perspective and all is important in landscape photography, but not always. When you are doing abstract, there is no perspective. When you are showing, I mean, sometimes scale. I mean, see, if you look at it, none of my images you can find a single human, because I don't find exciting adding human element. Though the book says that to show the scale, you should. See, again, we are all different, and we have to see things differently, because you're different, myself is different, Yeshwar is different, Arvind is different. So all of us are different personalities. So my thing is, when I do these photographs, I'm not doing to impress anyone, So I'm doing it for my own sake, because I'm not on a assignment where somebody is paying me X amount to do this kind of thing. At that time, probably to impress the client, we had to do that. But if you're on freelance, if you're doing work, your own expression. And since you're getting into photography, I'll tell you a small advice. If you become professional photographer, do, because you have to make your living. So what clients wants, you have to do that. But allot at least 10% of your time in photography for your own sake. And end of the day, those are the images you're going to stand out. Okay? Not what you have done for the client.
About the process of the images?
Process. I do very, very elementary process. Like, I don't use Lightroom or Photoshop and all. I do Photoshop elements. That's it. That's a very basic. I use a very 15-year-old camera. It is a D300 with 18200. And that's why I'm not talking about equipment, because I'm not going to talk anything, because there are so many other forums we can discover the equipment. But I'm not going to talk about the equipment, because I believe, suppose if I imagine, I go and buy a bat worth 1 lakh rupees. Do I go to bat like Virat Kohli? No, I cannot bat like Virat Kohli. Okay? So similarly, photography also, if you have the costliest 1 crore camera, and if you are not mentally or evolved as a photographer, there's nothing going to happen. It's just one more tool. All cameras are tools. They're going to help you, but they cannot be your boss.
Sir, I would like to go back 18 years down the history line, where you said that in 2004 you saw the first light in Tibet. Me being a visualizer, I generally take photography as two things, that is the purpose and the feeling behind it, any photograph I take. So I just wanted to know the story behind you finding, what was the feeling when you saw that light, and what pushed you, because you said that you've been a cricketer before that, you've been playing Ranji, so I'm also a big fan of cricket. I understand the temperament and persistence that goes behind it, but photography is completely opposite. So like, what was the exact feeling that made you switch your fields, or?
There's so many things in life, there is no reason. It just happens. Suppose you look at a girl, you fall for her. Okay, so you're not going to explain why I fell in love with her. There is no time. This is not a why, when, where is something beyond our control. Okay, so it happens. So that day also it just happened. I cannot understand why it happened that day. So not that I haven't seen snow mountains before. I've been there. I went on a honeymoon to Manali and all. So that time I enjoyed it. But that's something that snapped inside. Clicked inside me. It just happened that moment. Okay. So there is no reason for so many things in our life, and this is also one of it. Thank you. Thank you.